And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where are you joining from. I'm Sachin Bagla. I'm based in sunny London, just like Kate is. And I'm very pleased to welcome all of you in this edition of Navigate Your Next Conversations that is themed around enabling resilience and driving digital transformation with cloud data and analytics. In the last decade, cloud data, AI, and automation drove organizational efficiencies across multiple dimensions. However, these technologies were largely applied in silos. The new era, which has seen rapid digital acceleration, in part due to pandemic, as we all know, is witnessing their application in nearly every element of the enterprise and will drive symbiotic relationships among people, machines, enterprises, and the environment. Data is the new connector and will help transition enterprises from being automation driven to being autonomous and cognitive, powered by AI and cloud. Data powers the agility and digital fluidity in an organization, breaking the traditional boundaries of an enterprise and collapsing those silos which have inhibited the business value delivery that can be maximized through cloud and AI. As we've seen in the pandemic, data rich and data powered businesses adapted much better to the new normal. Cloud, data, and analytics have helped enterprises become more resilient and have helped them drive accelerated digital transformation. With that context, I am privileged and honored to host a very strong lineup today for this edition of Navigate Your Next Conversations in partnership with AWS, who is a long-standing strategic partner of Infosys. Today we have on the panel Srinath KS. Srinath was appointed as the head of analytics and platforms at TSB Bank in July 2020. Sri, in his role, looks after TSB's big data platforms, digital marketing, risk platforms, which include fraud, financial crime, and credit risk. Sri joined TSB from Barclays, where he had worked for over 10 years. In all, Sri has over 23 years of work experience in technology and retail banking industry. TSB Bank is a well-known retail bank with a trusted customer brand, heritage stretching back to the start of the savings bank movement 200 years ago, and a committed workforce that offer full service banking to more than 5 million customers. Driving digital transformation with such a wonderful brand that has such a strong heritage will be great to learn from and hear from Sri later on in the panel. Then I have Adnan Hassan, who is a very well-regarded global, GTM analytics specialist at AWS. Adnan's focus areas are partnering with large global customers to transform their business by ideating and working backwards from the customer's business goals, provide prescriptive journey roadmaps, and working closely until vision becomes a reality. And finally, I have my good old friend who I know for a long time, Madasami. Madasami is a cloud analytics transformation leader at Infosys, where he leads technology consulting for data and analytics. He is passionate about working with customers on modernizing data estates, cloud adoption, and democratizing AI, among other related themes. With that introduction, I will request Mada to share his perspectives to begin with. Mada, over to you.
Thanks, Sachin. Thanks everybody for joining and from wherever you are. And like Sachin articulated the journey of digital transformation that many of our customers are undertaking, and the role of data and analytics modernization in that setting. We from a system integrator perspective, and we want to be the navigator to where the customers are looking to go, and we want to guide them in charting their path. We want to guide them in terms of accomplishing what they're looking to accomplish. And in the way that we look at it, we look at the arc of the customer, typical customer journey in this undertaking. into three broad segments. The first segment is where looking to lay the foundation, modernize and digitize the assets and the workloads that they have, and prepare this for the long haul, right? So this is what we call as a modernization phase. And then we look at customers who are looking to monetize in terms of something that is around the products that they have, around the services, focus on their customers, focus on optimizing things like supply chains, things like procurement, of course, marketing, and so on and so forth, and improve on their key metrics. And in some cases, we are also seeing customers go from there to build and deliver new products, new products that were otherwise not possible, new products which are often largely data-based, and even create new revenue models for their organization. So this is what we call as a monetization phase, where the investments that are made during the foundation is recovered or repaid in multiples. And then we see customers going into an overdrive, creating in some places data exchanges, marketplaces that can go further and go towards what we call as a fully connected enterprise. We call it a live enterprise, and that's the journey arc that many of our customers are looking to kind of go towards. So naturally, our offerings around this are obviously structured to fit in this path. What is needed for each of these, each phase, or for that matter, each step in each of these phases is what guides our offerings on this. Quickly to look at our offerings. You'll see a similarity between what you saw earlier and here. The data platform foundation is where we lay out a secure, scalable foundation on cloud, giving the customers the ability to take advantage of some of the fantastic platform services that are offered on AWS. Migrate some workloads, typically workloads which are currently running on appliances on-prem, or maybe on data lakes, on Hadoop, mainframes, so on and so forth, to a much more of an elastic and scalable and an agile platform on the cloud. And often there is a play of hybrid cloud. Some customers build a polycloud platform, but it is all about taking the time to set up the foundation, and moving their workloads to that. And then there are things around operationalization, things around DevSecOps, performance optimization, and keeping cost under control. It is easy to say, yeah, I'm going to go to cloud, but there are several controls that we want to put in place. So we are constantly keeping a watch on what is happening. And from there, when we go into what we call a scaled agile analytics phase of this is where we focus on certain advanced capabilities on analytics, build data catalogs, build capabilities for accelerating AI/ML, and operationalizing them. And that also, wherein we also give customers the ability to build some use cases which are advanced, including some real-time capabilities, deliver sales flash, or deliver early warning systems, or produce compliance systems that are agile and nimble. And from there, we have our industry platform offerings, which is where we help the customers industrialize and really go on this overdrive, like I talked about earlier. So our digital brain offerings and our live enterprise offerings, are largely geared for for that model. And end to end, during this journey, we are looking to provide our customers with a managed transformation service that wherein we can take up the management of the data estate and transform and lead this to where our target state is. So this is the gamut of offerings that we have around this, and we partner heavily with AWS and take advantage of the capabilities and services that they have built already, and building on a everyday basis. I mean, we are excited to kind of take advantage of some of the latest and greatest that AWS has to offer. And I would like to kind of invite my partner, Anand, to talk about what capabilities they're producing today, and that we are able to take advantage of to serve our customers best. Anand.
Well, thank you, Mara. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so thank you, Sachin, and the team for inviting me. So folks, today I'm going to talk about achieving data and analytics and how AWS is helping. And we're going to talk about some of the problems that customers have faced around this journey, and what is AWS doing to solve it. So I'm going to talk very briefly, but if there is any questions, we can address this in the live chat later. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to start off with this slide, even though you know the value of data and everyone is trying to become data-driven. There is a research conducted by Ford, and they found out that only 37% of the customers have been successful. Well, the aspiration is there, but customers are not able to realize that goal. And why is that? So I've listed few issues that customers face. And the biggest being that the data in the organization is spread in silos. It's all situated in silos. It's in different applications. It's in legacy databases. And it's really hard for analysts or decision makers to combine all this data together and to see the real value of that. Also, we are seeing growing needs for real-time analytics. Like, people want to know what's happening in real time, so that data which is stored in data warehouses is not good enough, right? So those are some of the challenges that customers are facing to really become data-driven. Now, if you do it right, and if you're able to get around those challenges, the ROI is massive. So there is a over 400% ROI that IDC has estimated. And this is a great white paper that you can download for yourself, where IDC has talked about the journey that customers have taken and how they have built their platform using AWS analytics and ML services out there. So there's substantial improvement that you can see: 9-month payback, new revenue gains, 40% improvement in staff productivity, things like that. Okay, so let's start with the problem that I mentioned, the data silo problem. So what is data silos? Data silos, at any time when your data is stored in disparate systems, it becomes a silo. So historically, you have data in your transactional system, OLTP, ERP, CRM. To analyze, you would create data warehouses, which became a silo. When big data came in, Hadoop systems, Hadoop platforms for devices, sensors, clickstream data, that also became a silo. And it was hard to find a way to bridge this, how you can analyze all this data together. Now, when cloud emerged, and cloud storage became very popular, there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity if you can have all this data in one place, store this in open format, then it would help realize that goal, and you can have one system which could be used to analyze everything. But the reality is that goal wasn't ever realized, and data ended up again in silos. So even in the in cloud, the data ended up in warehouses or big data systems out there. Now, a pattern that we recommended was a AWS Lakehouse architecture, and in there we said, okay, you don't have to move everything in a warehouse. And the way it would work is you would have data in the lake on S3. You're going to expose it through a catalog, and then from the warehouse you can access that as external table, right? So this was a pattern that a lot of customers used, and they achieve great price to performance ratio with this. It minimized data movement, and the price performance ratio was improved because if you move everything to the data warehouse, your cost would go up. You will have the performance but it would be at a very high cost. So if you have this balance in between a data lake and a data warehouse, then you can achieve that lower price to performance ratio. But customers continue to experience a lot of issues with that lakehouse approach as well. Well, no, performance was a problem. So when the data was growing in the lake, it was stored in smaller files, and whenever you were making a query to the data lake, it would take much longer because the system has to scan through all those smaller files. Security was another problem because of the way S3 would store the data in object format. You cannot enforce table level permissions. So you have to grant permission at the file or the bucket level, right? Which makes things very complex. Ideally, you would like a system where you would have one system to enforce security, right? But in that lakehouse design, you had to enforce security both at the data warehouse level and the data lake level. Customers also ask for Delta Lake features. What Delta Lake is when the things change in the lake. So you have some dimensional data, product data, which is changing. How would you update it? How would you manage inserts, updates, and deletes and things like that? Because that was asked, but there was issues because you cannot actually handle that. So those are some of the problems that customers were facing. Collaboration was a requirement. So our goal now is to provide a system where we can have this data lake right here be operational enough to provide one single pane where you can manage the security, you can provide your sharing, and it will have that performance as well. And to this, you can bring your purposeful compute to data as well. So rather than having to move data to all these different silo systems, you can have data largely situated here and then bring purposeful compute to the data. This is our model lakehouse architecture that you can probably read up on the web as well. Now, what enables this? This is a service that we have introduced called AWS Lake Formation that allows you to do that. It allows you to build the data lakes faster. It simplifies the security management. You can now have table level security. You don't have to manage security at the bucket level. It's an API which is available for you to bring your purposeful compute to the data. Right? So it's that simplification that we are providing. If I talk about this reference architecture, when the data lands in S3, we have AWS Glue Crawler that crawls, adds the data in a catalog, and then this lake formation is going to enforce the security as an API. So anytime a tool, a query engine, or a BI tool requires access, it will go through this security layer, right? So you don't have to access this data directly. It will go through the security layer. So it creates this abstraction and simplification, making one single place where you can have all this data and access that. All right, so a couple of other use cases that is enabling this. So historically, the way this pattern has been implemented, you have to have permissions managed at both levels. So if you're a consumer or provider and they're sharing their data, you have to manage permissions both at the bucket level as well as the glue level as well. But now what we are doing is we sort of simplify that. So Lake Formation is going to allow you to have one single system where you can manage all the security. You don't have to manage permissions at the bucket level. All you do is register those buckets with the service itself, and then just grant permissions at the table level. You will also be allowed to enforce row and column level security. So essentially, you can have someone accessing it, say a finance user, and this finance user is accessing a glue table which has 15 columns, but this person only has access to 5 columns. So you can enforce column level security as well as lower level security with this capability, right? So essentially what we are enabling with Lake Formation is making S3 sort of function like a traditional database. So all those attributes that a traditional database has, we are enabling it. Very recently, to get to our goals and the value we are adding, a feature that was requested was, the Delta Lakes. Like databases have asset transaction capabilities. So can we enforce something like that at S3 level? So that's what we introduce with a feature called govern tables in Lake Formation. So ideally, it creates abstraction, so you don't have to worry about all those different versions of data. The system will have one table that you can look at, and behind the scenes, it's going to manage all those different versions out there. With that, you're able to manage different data versions as well. Time travel is an opportunity, right? So if you want to see the data or as a specific point in time, you will be able to do that. Another bigger ask that customers has was performance. They're like, these smaller files take much longer to scan. So we added storage optimizer to help auto compact these smaller files and reduce the scan. So with this, we are getting on a vision to help customers get all this data in one place and simplify the need for analytics and bring analytics at scale. Okay, so this was just a brief overview. I'm going to hand it back to Sachin. Thank you.
Thank you, Adnan, and thank you, Mara, for those wonderful, perspectives. And Adnan, you can maybe stop sharing your screen, and we'll move to the conversation, which is my favorite part of the conversation today. So let me start with Shri. Shri, it's our privilege to have you on the panel. Let me say that. It's been fantastic working with you. As I mentioned during my introductory remarks, you took on the mantle as the head of analytics and platforms at TSB in July 2020, just about to come to a year. And of course, you had a very fantastic stint at Barclays before then. Would you like to tell us a bit more about your role at TSB, just to kick things off? Shri?
Sure. So firstly, thanks for having me on the panel today. So I'm one of those chosen ones, right, that joined in the middle of the pandemic, and my experience, joining a new bank, was fairly unique, as a lot of people that actually switched companies during the pandemic would describe. All I had to do was switch laptops. I was pretty much within the kind of virtual world of either WebEx or Microsoft Teams, and that in itself was an experience, right? Yeah, so I used to work for Barclays for about 12 odd years, and then last July I actually joined TSB. So out here my role is, as Sachin described top of the call, a few parts. I run all the data platforms for TSB. That includes any analytical and operational data platforms. I'm pretty sure we'll talk about that in a bit more of detail. I run the digital engagement estate. I don't want to call it marketing, because marketing comes across as somebody is always selling. So how do we actually keep customers engaged, right? With the right things that the customers want rather than what the bank actually wants, right? And how do we get the kind of dialogue going? So I'm responsible for all the digital engagement platforms as well. And I'm also responsible for the risk platforms that cut across fraud and financial crime and credit risk and so on. So all in all, I would describe or characterize my role as, the hardcore kind of data platforms and all the data-enabled applications, be it fraud. I mean, ultimately, if you look at it, it's data that's actually enabling or powering a lot of these applications at the core of it. That's my role.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Sri, thanks for that. And having seen you in that journey for last almost 1 year at TSB, I know there hasn't been a single dull moment in that journey. Now, we know that TSB is on a digital transformation journey, and you are at the forefront of the leadership team that is driving this transformation. We also know that TSB of the future will be more mobile and digitally focused, simplifying its customers' experience by ensuring they have a distinctive TSB experience with an easier to use service and more relevant products across all of the bank's channels. As part of embracing this digital transformation and in response to changing customer behavior, there is a reduction in the branch network with over 80 branches already closed in 2020. Within this digital transformation roadmap, simplification and efficiency is also a key focus area for the bank. Becoming a more technology enabled, and you spoke about data, as a big part of that, and innovative business means transforming to be simpler and faster. TSB's new technology platform has a strong foundation to build upon for the future with multi-cloud and data capabilities, using data-driven insights and analytics to improve customer experience for its target segment. Having said this, Sri, can you tell us about the initiatives in this journey you have undertaken in modernizing your data platforms?
Sure. So maybe I'll give a little bit of context, right? Maybe in 3 parts. So let's start with the business context. You touched upon that briefly. So we are moving towards being a very, very heavily digital bank. And if I have to actually quantify that with data, to think of what I would call as basic banking, of about, if customers do 100 transactions, about 92 or 93, give or take, transactions actually happen through what we call as self-serve, which means the customer is completing the transaction by himself or herself. That's the business context. Now, what does that mean for data? That means that, we got to have the ability to, first of all, take on more data, look at what's actually happening with the customers. There's always happy path scenarios where everything goes well, great. Equally, if a customer is struggling, we've got to have enough instrumentation that is all powered by data for us to actually enable or drive digital, adoption further. That's the business context. In a little bit of tech context is, luckily enough for us, I think, within TSB, we don't actually, own a data center, right? So we are kind of, a cloud heavy bank, I would say, right? So our core banking runs on an IBM cloud, for example. Our card platform runs on a Fiserv cloud, and our telephony infrastructure runs on a BD cloud. More recently, we've started actually working with AWS and Amazon and so forth. So cloud is not particularly a new concept. That's the kind of second context that helps us kind of accelerate or because lack of legacy actually helps us move forward to what we call as the true cloud. The third context, when I just joined, from a more data-specific landscape, about a year back, my observations were like twofold. We were quite heavily batch-based, nothing much happening real time. Secondly, this fairly limited self-serve MI analytics kind of capability, almost no machine learning, AI, ML kind of, that's, nothing much happening around that space. That's probably a bit of business tech and the data landscape, context. Now that's where, Infosys and AWS actually come into picture. We wanted to actually put together, 2 data initiatives, I'd say. One is, how do we actually get more and more data ingested through to the data lake stood up in the AWS platform itself. That to a certain extent, allows us to, extend the data capabilities, and we'll talk about that in a bit more of detail. So that's the data lake. I think Adnan touched upon the lake house kind of a construct. That's our kind of first initiative that we've been partnering with both Infosys and AWS. Second one was, I would say, while it's important to actually empower colleagues with analytical abilities, it's equally important to give back to customers, meaning, data can do a lot more for customers themselves. It's not just an inward-facing utility anymore. And that's where we started putting together a real-time data store, right? So that we can actually capture, anything and everything happening real-time and have the ability to serve it back to the customer as quickly as possible, as near real-time as possible. So those are the 2 kind of signature initiatives that we started taking on in the last 1 year.
Fantastic. Shri, those are fantastic initiatives, and they lay a great, strong foundation to deliver to TSB's vision and strategy. Please tell us, how do these initiatives enable TSB to democratize advanced analytics and scale AI?
Sure. I mean, first of all, what does democratizing mean? So I'll just give you a little bit of flavor on that. Again, both from a colleague perspective and from a customer perspective. And then we'll talk about how we are looking to democratize. So first of all, you talk to any analytics guy, a machine learning guy, you'd say that, look, struggling for infrastructure, I don't have the right libraries, right tools, and of course, I don't have the data, and I've got quality issues and all of that kind of good stuff, right? So therefore, to kind of overcome some of these challenges is what I mean by democratizing the analytics. So the Lake initiative to a large extent addresses some of these kind of constraints. So moving our data to the AWS, of course, working with Infosys, enables us actually to now have a solid unconstrained environment to get as much data as we want into a common place, well modeled. And if I have to spin a couple of cores to actually run an analytical engine, that's fairly easy, a couple of clicks away now with AWB and tools like that actually coming in. And more importantly, right, it's the getting all the not only infrastructure and data, but getting all the right tools, right? I need Python, I need something else, enabling that suddenly actually kind of makes the colleagues' lives a lot more easier than what it used to be, where okay, I've got to now queue up, let me raise a request and I'm going to wait for somebody to give me a code, and anything is like 6 months away to now things are moving towards more weeks kind of timelines. Is like a breath of fresh air for people, right? That's an important transformation for colleagues. And I'd say for customers, right, if you look at it from how do we use data to actually give back to customers? I think that's where the real-time kind of data store actually comes in. We'll talk about a few use cases in detail. Hopefully, if somebody wants to actually go into that level of detail. But what effectively the kind of real-time data store actually does is actually take a lot of data from our core banking estate into a real-time data store. So if you open up mobile banking, for example, rather than actually always relying on our core banking, which we should rely on and we will continue to rely on, but to actually just get access to our transactions now, it's going to be the real-time store. That makes life a lot more easier, not only to have a store that's resilient, but to actually continue to enhance and then build upon it. So I'd say that's democratization for customers, right? I'm quite happy to elaborate any of these things in the due course if anybody has questions.
Sure. Yeah. So we will come to the audience questions. We'll open the floor in a few minutes, Shri, but that's a great summary. I want to actually bring in Adnan at this point as well. Adnan, given your experience and breadth of experience, advising customers on similar journeys, would you just share your perspective on of course we heard from Shri on TSB, but would love to hear from you, on your perspective on this across industries as well.
Absolutely. So what Shrinath talks about, it's the right approach that he's taking. Real-time analytics is growing, and that's customers are looking at. So if you go back to that lakehouse architecture that I talked about, so I talked about that center where you have all your data in the lake, and then you bring purposeful compute around it, so everything is accessing that. But how do you enable real-time insight? So there is that perimeter around that as well, right? That perimeter allows you to tap into all these different data sources together as well. So example, if I'm using a data warehouse and I want to access a data in the transactional system, I should be able to tap into that. Right. So we are building those capabilities and tools to address or bridge that gap. And this is what customers have been asking for. So I deal with several other industries outside of finance. Like I'll use auto as an example because connected cars and self-driving vehicles is driving is getting a lot of attention these days, and it's all around data. There's a lot of data being ingested, and it requires a lot of real-time insights. So if you're having a self-driving car, it needs to make decisions right away, right? So that type of platform requires this capability. You cannot use those legacy ways of building analytical tools. So real-time analytic is fundamental. So this is where we're getting towards, but the platform stays in that architecture that I described earlier.
Fantastic. Madhav, would you add some dimensions to this on the democratization of AI and analytics? Yeah,
certainly. Love to. I think AI democratization. This is all motherhood and apple pie. We have always wanted it. Now we can have it. I think that's the way I look at it. It is. We since time immemorial, we have had customers, wanting to bring AI, wanting to do machine learning, wanting to do large scale of these, but it has never been easy in traditional platforms. To build capabilities that first enable at a fundamental level, and then to scale this. And when we talk about democratization, it comes with several scale challenges, and to overcome those, we need a sound operationalization framework that can give to the growing demand. When you democratize, people want to use it, and that needs to be supported well with the right operationalization capabilities at the data level, operationalization capabilities at the ML level, and that is now possible both with the kind of services and capabilities that AWS is delivering, and the kind of frameworks that we have put together to make this easy. AWB is a great example. There is a ML Ops framework that we have put together along with an SDK that makes it really simple to do some of what we need to do to scale this, to operation or to operate it, to govern it. Right? AI comes with great power comes great responsibility. That is made possible with this.
Great. No, I love that perspective because it sort of rounds up what you guys said. Srinath spoke about AWB in context of TSB, and then Adnan spoke about the cloud native capabilities. And then Mada, your view on how AWB, which basically stands for Analytics Workbench, and accelerators like MLOps that have been created by Infosys on top of cloud native capabilities on AWS are coming to life in TSB's context, right? So that's a fantastic way to round that off. Now, my final, planned question, and after this we will open it up to the audience, for question. I just wanted to, conclude the conversation with business benefits, right? So let's talk about the business benefits from these initiatives, right? Shri, I'll come back to you for this. What benefits will TSB's customers stand to gain? I know you've referenced, employees, colleagues, and customers in your considerations, but what sort of benefits are customers going to see from the, the initiative that you spoke about? Shri?
So, well, I think great question, right? Thanks, Sachin. And I probably use a few examples to actually bring things to life, right? So, I mean, look, banking is not new to anyone. Everybody uses a bank. You log in every day to actually look at your balances and transactions. It's one thing to actually show transactions, but it's a slightly different thing to actually tell customers a little bit more about their transactions. This happened to me, by the way, and I'm not making this up. When I actually opened my bank account, in fact this happened some time back, but when I was looking for a demo, right, I started looking at my own account. Some of my on a trend chart wise, some of my spend actually started actually going up. It could be groceries or it could be utility and so on, right? And interestingly, now when I actually spoke to one of my contracting company, they said that, look, you are on a contracted tariff, which expired. Now you are actually, back to standard tariff. Do you actually go back to the contracted tariff? If you take a 1-year deal, you get a better discount. It's just a very simplistic example, but it's a very powerful example for the customer, right? If you can tell the customer, right, look, in your neighborhood, the spend generally on this is X, but you seem to be, spending, X plus something. Is that by design, or is that something that that's just happening, just like what happened to me? That's one great example of what I would call as richer or smart transactions, right? How do we use data to give back to customers? That's got to be in the fundamental core of at least what we are definitely looking to do. That's just one example. If you look at how do we constantly listen to customers, right? The another one, talking about machine learning and AI, very simple example, but this is something that we are actually working on, so it's not made up. How do you listen? Because customers talk to us every day. Customers tell us things. So how do we actually turn customers' conversations with voice to text, and then take a look at what are they actually telling us every day, right? That's to me is important. So we're using natural language processing to actually try and categorize these kind of calls, and just to kind of get a perspective of what is really happening, what are the customers telling us, because it's valuable feedback. We just can't have so many millions and millions of calls being plowed through by a human being. So therefore machine learning actually very nicely helps us. Okay, customers are calling us because how good was a call versus how not so great was a call, and what are best practices? How do we serve customers better? Those are some of the examples of what we are actually undertaking right now, to, again, in the best interest of how do we give back to customers. Look, there's always some technological benefits. The time to market when it comes to working with a cloud provider like Amazon is just amazing, right? Because now, as Smara said, the capability existed, or the concept existed, but now we are really getting to do it. Equally enough, right? For us to actually plow through so much of data, choose so much of data, and then turn it into a bunch of insights, now can really come at a price point that never existed earlier. So it's a cost benefit associated to that too. Let's say those are some examples of how we are looking to provide benefits. But bear in mind, right, all of these things, Smara said, will have to be done properly. Meaning, we've also stood up a data governance program alongside, just to make sure that we exactly understand, okay, what are our data elements, what is a dictionary, and what is the lineage, and so on. So it's got to be done, but it's got to be done in a very controlled way so that we know who's doing what. I'll stop there.
That's fantastic, because you really brought both analytics and AI in a really business customer context, how nicely it's impacting the customer experience, whether it's related to transactions and and using those insights, or leveraging AI in the contact center context that you mentioned. Adnan, again, bringing you into this question as well, just would love to hear your perspective on business benefits as well, Adnan.
Yeah, absolutely. So the business benefit is, if you think, the one benefit, if I go back in the whole democratization space, what customers have historically struggled with is providing the ability to the data scientists and all the different analysts out there to bring their own tools, right? So this democratization is about how you can allow them to bring the tools of their choice, right? So I talked about bringing compute to data, like bring your own compute. Now providing the ability to bring any tool, right? And historically, there's been a lot of challenges around this driver is missing, or that's not supported at all. So what we are trying as a platform company is trying to create or that's abstraction or simplification that people should be able to bring their own tools. And then also on top of that, the storage of data. I'm going to bring up this data sharing aspect, because the biggest benefit that organization can realize is when they start to share all this data. Say you have two departments, finance, sales. Historically, when anyone from finance needs to get access to sales, there's not a good way. So either the people here have to create this account, or they have to copy this data around, right? Which has historically been a huge blocker. So a well-governed system where you can enable sharing is the goal. If you can enable that, then you can really democratize this and bring this analytics at scale. So this is another area that we are focusing on. It will have huge business benefits, right? Trying to combine all this, but at the same time, we are not creating a system where a single source like IT would manage everything. We will have this atomicity provided to the business so they can manage their data, they can own their data, and then share it. But when they share it, it should be available to others to access, but there's not a need to move the data around, right? So we are supporting that in-place analytics type of motion. And that we see will have like great business benefit in terms of agility and ability to make decisions faster.
Great, thank you, Adnan, and I think we are slightly over time, so I just want to allow the remaining time for questions from the audience. So let's open up the floor. Mayank, people have questions. I'll request you to unmute yourself, and if you want, you can open up your video, and please ask questions.
Hi, this is Jignesh from AWS. How are you guys?
Good, Jignesh. Please go ahead.
Good. So I have a question for the entire group, right? So there is a lot of discussions about lakehouse architecture today, and it's taking like a prominent space in discussions with all the customers. Pretty much any customer that I talk about, they're talking about lakehouse architecture. What are your views on that? How should we carefully tread through, the new era of, making the data available rather than massaging it directly, making it available for analysis? What do you think about that?
Mada, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I would. I think the concept of lake house it has always been an aspiration. We have had customers in the early days of Hadoop augment Hadoop to their existing warehouse to bring down the cost, improve the agility, add additional tools and capabilities to their platform. With the convergence, I think the lake houses, the lake used to exist separately, the warehouse used to exist separately. The convergence is what is being made, what is new really, right? If we have data which is a common asset between different platform components, whether it is a path where the data is flowing in a typical batch kind of mode, or whether it is real time, it is eventually ending up in the same place from a data ingestion perspective, and from a storage perspective, it is being shared between where some analytics is being run or where existing workflows are being run to massage data, to prepare the data, to improve the quality, and so on and so forth. They all have come together. And this makes the desire of a lake house distinctly possible. And even going further, I think this is going to kind of move further towards a data mesh and a data fabric that where the data it does not really move around as much, but it comes together on demand, and that's the direction in which the industry is going, and more and more technologies coming together to enable this, and this is this is going to be the future and the direction in which we see our customers going in.
Sure, thanks, Jignesh.
Thanks, Mada.
Next question, please. Okay, so I think I had an offline question which had come to me, via the, event team. And maybe, Shri, this is something you may want to comment on. It says how to strike a balance between abiding by regulatory compliance while making the most out of the data. Sri, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think, look, if we actually, the way I look at it, right, is the compliance and regulatory, whatever commitments are here for a reason, and that's in the best interest of both the bank and the customer, right? Take a simple example, let's say GDPR, right? It's just to kind of, provide the privacy back in the hands of customers, right? Customers should be in charge, and that's the right thing to do. So I don't necessarily see that as an impediment. I see that as a way to actually kind of use that as almost like a very, very good set of guidelines or boundaries almost to operate within, right? Otherwise, there is just not a clear enough, kind of boundary, right? So right now, at least, from where I sit and how I look at things, it's not technically come across as a big impediment. Having said that, right, it's very important to take the regulator along the journey. If you regulator themselves are throwing now sandboxes and things like that to actually say, hey, try out new things, right? So there's definitely an upward movement to actually use technology from all angles is what I would say. So it's really important to actually first of all demonstrate to everybody, customers more importantly, of course, and the regulator, to actually say why you are doing what you are doing. And if there is a very strong rationale, I don't think there are a lot of people actually standing in the way right now. So I wouldn't technically characterize regulator as something, we should actually look at it as an enabling part of journey is what I would say.
Sure. Thank you for that perspective, Sri, on that question. Other questions from the audience? You can unmute yourself or pop your question as Kate mentioned in the chat. You can pop your question into the chat box. So let me pick up one other offline question that came through. This is about views on rapidly scaling analytics environment, integrating cloud and legacy data environments, and risk management around data in cloud. Maybe Madhav, you want to share views on that?
Like we were talking about earlier. I mean, I remember, and I'm sure all of us have gone through. There have been instances. I mean, there are a number of customers with who had the models of yesteryears. Models for say lending decisions, models for recommendations, and so on and so forth. If you look at the journey that the customers have taken, these models have been few and far between. These are very, very crucial for the business, and but the models can at times go outdated. Responding to events, and the models. There's very few models to pick between. It's not like you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 recommendation engines to pick from, depending on the strategy. What we see our customers now going through is not only there is a proliferation of newer what we call as analytical products which are based on new strategies, new algorithms that operate on the data and produce what we call as a ML infused data set. So that is new. That the concept of productization is not new, but the concept of creating products around analytics is new, and that means there are more and more models, more and more AI that is happening, and that is essentially what we want, and essentially what we want in a democratized entity. And I think this is even going to go further. I believe the direction of the industry is to even more enable the end customer. I mean, models were the thing of premium, right? A premium which only a set of very select data scientists can operate. It is becoming more mainstream, where a larger set of citizen data scientists can do that today. It is even going to go towards enabling consumers, maybe customers of TSB, for example, having access to the data, being able to do analytics on that is probably the direction, and this is where this things go on steroid, and we need to be ready and prepared for that eventuality, because I think it is a matter of time when this is going to happen under the right governance.
Sure. Thank you, Mada. And if there are no more questions, then I think I'm going to sort of have a quick summary and wrap up, because we are nearing the top of the hour. And I don't see any more questions. So I think we will go ahead and wrap this up. So basically, if I can try and summarize what has been a very, very rich, and multi-dimensional conversation. I've just taken some notes as we were discussing things that, this has been a fantastic session. So thank you to all the, panelists, Srinath from TSB, Adnan from AWS, and Mada, my good old friend from Infosys. Thank you to all of you for, having such a wonderful conversation today. And all of you are transformation leaders on how cloud data and analytics have helped enterprises become more resilient and have helped them drive accelerated digital transformation. We learned about TSB's transformation journey and how a real-time platform combined with strong data governance framework, which Sri was very important to outline, is helping deliver hyper-personalized customer experiences, thereby modernizing approach to customer relationship and channels. And he gave some wonderful examples of how this data-driven digital transformation is actually positively impacting the customer experiences, whether it comes to transaction analytics or understanding the purpose of their calls in contact center using AI and speech analytics and things like that. Mada spoke about the modernize, monetize, and network framework and the offerings that are underpinning that transformation for our customers. And Adnan, spoke about the great value that you can drive, almost 400% ROI based on very, very reputed analyst estimates like IDC, if you do it right. But challenges exist. While everyone wants to be a data-driven organization, but a very small number are actually able to realize that benefit. And there are lots of challenges, but data silos is something that Adnan spoke a lot about. And that is something which is extremely important to, bring it together. And, Adnan spoke about the lakehouse architecture, which is basically a play on data lake and data warehouse and bringing it together. And even that is not a silver bullet, because there are ways to, do it correctly, and how you can drive a very high price to performance, value to, price ratio, right? So the whole for lake formation architecture, which helps S3 behave like a traditional database, is something Adnan also shared with us from innovations in AWS, and very rich panel conversation as well from all the attendees, and some good questions that came in offline. So with that, I think that's really my summary of some of the key takeaways. But like Adnan said, there are elements which you can download yourself. And there are assets available, on the AWS marketplace on Infosys.com website. And do reach out to all of us on whichever topics you need us to follow up. We'll be happy to arrange a deep dive individually for you. Thank you so much.